So I want to talk about the Yu-Gi-Oh! Original Artwork series and how the TCG might adapt something similarly. So make sure you guys smash the living crap out of that subscribe button so you guys don't miss out on more awesome content. So for those of you that don't know, the original Yu-Gi-Oh! Artwork series got announced a little while ago for Japan. It's basically going to be a specialty made-to-order product where they're going to be printing or reprinting the original 3 starter decks, Joey, Kaiba, and Yugi. And all 3 of these decks are going to be absolutely amazing. They're going to recapture the exact original flair that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Duel Monsters game went through in the early stages of the game's development, which is wonderful, actually. I'm really happy to think about, getting some of that little awesomeness, to return back to the game. Now, there's a couple of interesting little things with this. One, this is a made-to-order product. That means that it's going to be specialty to order, and there's only going to be a certain amount of these that are going to go into existence, which I've already seen a lot of people actually, reaching out to collectors and asking, hey, do you know anybody that's picking these up? Do you know anybody that's looking to have, these collectibles available? Is there a market for this stuff to be available? And yes, and yes. There is 100% a market to be had for, this product. Now, this is for the OCG. You got to think about that. They're also going to be getting manga rares with this too. I'll say that again for those of you in the back that aren't really, too sure what's going on. Manga rares. Now, for those of you that don't know, it's supposed to be obviously Red Eyes, Dark Magician, and Blue Eyes that are going to be receiving these nice manga rarity upgrades. Now, with that being said, everybody, now that we've got this confirmation that these manga style of cards are going to be coming to the TCG, where are we going from here? I think that the TCG is going to piggyback off of this success. I would not. Konami already reprinted structured or the LOB and Metal Raiders, Spell Rulers. They already did a little reprint of that for the 25th anniversary. There is nothing stopping Konami, especially NA, from dipping in to the particulars of what's going on here and actually push for a reprint on their own starter decks. They can whip up a starter deck Kaiba, Yugi, and Joey reprint, no problem. The only one that would feel a little bit saddened by this would be Pegasus, because Pegasus did also have a starter deck in this era, but I don't necessarily think that the TCG really cares about that. Now, in order to duplicate the success of this, they would also have to include the manga rares in that style product, which could be very easily done. Now, Konami TCG doesn't work on the same premise that the OCG does. We don't really get the made to order style of products that the OCG does unless it's in extremely good volumes, i.e., look at the Kaiba briefcase. Even though I still consider the Kaiba briefcase to be a pretty major success, a lot of people do not consider that to be a very successful product at all. Actually, I think most people kind of look at the Kaiba briefcase kind of as a failure overall, just because the product, it's not been like super great, for the people that are like, I gotta short term this. No, it was a long term product that you knew that you were gonna have to hold for a very, very long time, and now you're really starting to see the long term ramifications of that sort of product actually finally becoming known. So at this point in time, people, I can imagine that the TCG is going to follow the blueprint for this to some degree. Now, where, how, when, where, why, how would we see this manga set and, the original art series stuff starting to populate? Now, if we follow the same trends, if this comes out, September, October in the OCG, the TCG is probably not going to be able to replicate this until March, April. You have to remember, it took the TCG 6 to 7 months to be able to even get the current sets into circulation, and even to, get a successful model for the Magnificent series. Magnificent Monsters is already $35 a box. I can only imagine, especially if you're going one set after the other here, and, you're going September into November for the set, or even, September, October. There has to be a cool down period for, the wallets of the player base, especially when you're slamming banger, one after the other on, the market. It's a little bit rough. It is. You can't just expect your player base to be able to turn back around and go, oh, yes, Daddy, give me more. There has to be, like, you cannot do, the early days of what we saw. And that's why, like, we had product fatigue for so long. It was, you were spending so much. Now the fact that, the TCG has come up with these manga rares, which technically is what, 6 to 7 months after the first run through. I think that's fine. There's no real reason to really feel that pressure coming down off of that. It's just like, oh, hey, we can kind of see the movements coming through here. And, it just kind of becomes a little bit of a, okay, cool, I see, the next thing that's coming. And honestly, that's what the new manga rares are, basically. It's like, you're coming off of Grandmaster rares. You got Konami going, okay, well, what can we do to still capture the audience? How can we invigorate the 30th anniversary? But also at the same time, how can we keep an interest in the existing player base for things to kind of keep things going? And that's exactly what you're seeing right now. You're seeing a good, constant streamline of adaptability here on top of the market. So, judging by the current products, the current everything that we've got coming down the tube here, we have a timetable. We actually know where things are going to go here. We now have an idea of what specialty products are coming. We're still only 2 months into this anniversary being, announced. And I think that's kind of an important thing to think about, is especially on such a short wave of things, it's kind of important just to kind of stay in the loop and kind of see, oh, hey, this is what's going on. This is how we plan on handling this anniversary. This is how, Konami's going to paint the picture for what's to come. And quite honestly, that's okay. I'm all for that, honestly. I am excited to see where we are going to go here as this unfolds. But manga rares will be the next exciting thing. I truly don't know how the manga rares are going to look. I guess that's kind of like your open-ended part of the back end of this video, is just like, we don't have details yet. I assume we'll get some here by the time that this video processes and goes up, which will be nice to see. It's 30 years of Yu-Gi-Oh, man. We're going to be stuck in this anniversary for 3 years because there's different parts of the anniversary that, we have to celebrate. And honestly, that's fine. It becomes a little bit fatiguing, kind of seeing the same thing kind of rolling through over and over again. But I think the 30th means more to us. And the fact that, they hit their 30th the same year as Yu-Gi-Oh! Or as Pokemon is actually kind of hilarious. I appreciate the fact that, they somehow managed to maintain this, power presence during an era where you've got something like Pokemon doing its 30th. And that's already a crazy thing to think about. So what do you guys think about everything? Please, leave a comment down below. Tell me what you guys think. It's definitely going to be an interesting era. But you guys have a good rest of your day, all right? Patrons! Thank you! Ah!
Thank you so much for watching. Check out these other videos.